Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we're focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everyone, welcome back to Drive On. I'm your host, Scott DeLuzio, and today my guest is David Romero. David is an Air Force veteran and yoga instructor who specializes in working with veterans and mental health through meditation. He conducts sound baths for over 400 people and focuses on self-mastery of emotions and the healing benefits of slow physical movements. And today we'll explore how practices like yoga and meditation can complement traditional workouts and different therapies for full healing and mental well-being. So before we get into all of that, David, welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. So before we kind of dive into all of this, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? Kind of what got you into the military? Kind of how yoga came to be in your life, and all that kind of stuff, and like take us through a little bit of that journey.
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, thank you also for your service, and thank you to all the veterans out there, and a big special thank you to Bay Club for linking us up together. So thank you. But as far as my journey, I came from a military family. My biological father was a Navy diver. My mom was a drug and alcohol psychologist. My stepfather was a data analyst. My brother was a Navy SEAL and all Navy, and then I'm the Air Force guy. So, I grew up, in that lifestyle and traveled around quite a bit with my family and lived all across the United States. And we finally settled back in San Diego, Oceanside, California. And my mom, being a drug and alcohol psychologist, was very big into mindfulness, and we had a whole library of books, on our bookshelves that discuss these topics. I ended up going to the Air Force Academy and did 4 years there and got out. Spent about a year trying to get onto the Olympic team. I stayed back a year after I graduated, and was a fairly competitive track and field athlete, cross country runner. So I was trying to get on the All Air Force team. Unfortunately, I just kept having reoccurring injuries to my
Mm.
knees and hips, IT bands. So had to shelf that and got into acquisitions program management, built rockets and satellites for the Air Force. Now I guess it's considered to be the Space Force, but did that. And, there was a colonel that came into our office one day, and he said to the whole group, he wasn't specifically talking to me, but he said, if you're not waking up thinking about launching rockets and satellites into space, you should really consider a shift in career, because that's the kind of people that we want. And with all due respect, like I've said, yeah, I don't think about that when thinking about that. I'm a biochemistry guy, an engineering guy. I love all that. And I actually got out of the military in 2008. Started working for a medical device company, sold medical devices for nearly 6 years. And then after having had enough time looking at the allopathic model, or the Western model of medicine, I felt this strong calling towards more Eastern practices, holistic practices. That's not to discount the Western style of medicine at all, but it's also to understand and have a full scope. And also at that time too, if we're being honest, I was struggling with some things. I was struggling with some addiction and alcohol and depression and anxiety, and um, going from a whole military life, moving into a civilian chapter, was a bit of a challenge, and was not fully ready for that. So in 2014, took my first yoga teacher training. I loved it so much. Ended up taking another training, and then another training. And, I've been teaching since 2014 yoga, and teaching mindfulness meditation. At one point, I was teaching at USC, teaching stress management as well too. And ever since I leaned in to more of the holistic practices, all these new and beautiful opportunities started unfolding for me. And I feel the best thing that I can do is to continue giving back to the community and service, even though I'm not wearing the uniform anymore.
Right, and I think, everyone has a time when they hang up the uniform. Some people do, enlisted, they do one enlistment and they get out, or they may re-enlist, several times and get out, or some people stay, full 20 plus years in the military, but eventually everybody gets out,
Hmm.
one way or another.
Right.
You're getting out of the military. There is going to be some other chapter at some point post-military life, and what does that look like for everybody? And some people, they go on, they find fulfilling careers. Some people struggle, and they have trouble figuring out how to navigate life post military, and they need a little bit of help. And so in comes people like you, and
Hmm.
who have, maybe, I don't want to say you figured it out, like you figured out life and everything is smooth sailing, because everybody has their challenges, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you found things that are different maybe than what people traditionally think of, like the you were talking about, like the Western medicine and things like that, which,
Hmm.
like you said, not, you don't want to throw all of that away. It's not that it's all bad. It's just, it may not all work for all people in all situations, and there may be other things out there that, if we can combine these things together,
Hmm.
and find some sort of, balance between all of it, then that might help. But you got to have people who can kind of instruct people and guide people through, um, you know the types of stuff that you do. Yoga, for example. Like, if I don't know how to do yoga, I'm not going to do yoga. I
Right.
need somebody to help me with that.
Right.
And so, that's another way to kind of serve and help folks who
Hmm.
are dealing with these types of issues. Now, you talked a little bit about, your mother, your upbringing, where there's all these books around, and was that like the thing that you kind of went back to, where, getting out of the military, it's like, how do I figure this stuff out? Did you, like, go back to some of those books and the things that you read earlier, to kind of help guide you through to where you are now?
A little bit, yeah. So there's some story to this. My mother, when I was 18 years old, transitioned due to cancer, and
Mm.
that it was my freshman year at the academy, and it was a shock to the system. Obviously, you know, having done a lot of self reflection about this, have recognized just how much that incident affected the rest of my life. And more than anything, what it helped me do was reconnect and understand and look at my history and look at why certain things were showing up in my life. And her work begged me, in some essence, to be curious about, okay, I'm having these quote unquote issues going on in my life. What is it that I can do, and how can I take my own personal power back, whether it's through emotional resolve or if it has to do with my physiological body? What can I do to start treating this body with more respect? And there is certainly an amount, a spiritual side associated with it too. You know, Due to the advent of social media, I believe and I feel that a lot of people have a strong misunderstanding of what yoga is.
Mhm.
They see these people dressed up in Lululemon, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but you kind of see like the Sunday brunch crew dressed up in all these high glossy photos, when that's the Western interpretation of it. But in truth, it's a much, much deeper practice. It's about being fully connected to our bodies and being less inside of our heads and being more present and having that not just situational awareness as an operator, but situational awareness is just what you do every day and how your thoughts, words, and actions impact people in your life and your communities and in the individuals that we choose to work with.
Yeah. As you're talking and you mentioned the word situational awareness,
Hmm.
and I think from a military perspective, we're all familiar with situational awareness, looking out or around your surroundings, making sure there's not an IED buried over there, or there's not a sniper coming out of that window, or something along those lines. You have to be aware of your surroundings, and I think in the military context, it's very outward facing. It's
Hmm.
what's going on around me. Like,
Hmm.
I'm the center of attention. What's going on out
Right.
there, and what's revolving around me. But in the context that you just used it in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just my interpretation of what you just said, is that it's more than that. Yeah, sure, you have to be aware of the things around you, but also the things kind of inside of you too. If you have this negative thought in your head, how is that affecting you? And it are you feeling that in other parts of your body, or if you say something to somebody else, how is that affecting them? And those types of things, kind of more on a emotional level, kind of internalizing how these things affect you,
Mhm.
and how they affect other people. But it's more than just look out for that sniper, who might be in that window, or that
Right.
type of thing, right? Is
Yeah,
that kind of what
absolutely.
you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. There's what you were talking about, the situational awareness of what's going on around us, and that usually has to do with like safety.
Yeah.
And you also typically have teams with you too, so it's the safety of the team. And these are external things that we are trying to protect against. Now, because the focus is so outwards, there has oftentimes been this disregard for what's going inside. And so, in situational awareness, also including, well, what's going on inside of me? When you're in theater and in deployment, or even if you're doing exercises and operations, it's always outward facing. And then you are facing some of that mental chatter. But when I'm referring to situational awareness, it's about what's the situation with my heart? Is
Mhm.
what I'm saying coming from a place of acceptance, reason, understanding, and love and peace as I give direction? Or is it coming from a place of shame, guilt, apathy, fear, remorse, desire, pride? All of these things. Situational awareness in the context I'm talking about is having an understanding of that internal narrative. And is that internal narrative that I'm having creating separation, or is it creating a connection? And learning to teach people, or teaching people how to work with that, and learning how to
Mhm.
work with that.
Yeah, so, yoga then is, we like you said before, we're all familiar with kind of the Western view of what yoga is, with, you know, the flashy Instagram photos, and those types of things, right? But
By the way, been there, done that. I've I've
yeah,
done all of
and
that.
I'm not trying to shame anybody who posts those pictures. I'm
Right.
just saying that's a piece of it. That's maybe part of what yoga is, but it's not the full picture.
Hmm.
And some of it might not be very easy to capture in a photo either, if that makes sense. So,
Hmm.
um, so how does yoga help with this kind of mastery of the whole being of who you are, like, the emotions and the physical and the everything else that kind of goes along with it? How does yoga help out in that scenario?
Sure. So, like, let's go to just a so for the audience out there, we'll just talk about just a very brief and easy definition of yoga. The word yoga means union. The Sanskrit word would be yuk, Y-U-K, but or yolk. So you have essentially the horse and the cart, and you have the thing that unionizes them together, that brings them together. Um, so in the context of yoga meaning union, it is the union to the present moment. And so then that begs us to ask the question, well, what exists in this present moment? You have the physical body, you have that which is taking place externally from the body, then you have that which is taking place internally, which includes things like the breath, the heart rate, bodily functionality. And then we're also, I don't want to say competing against, but we're also becoming more aware of our thoughts and what's on our minds, and how that internal narrative is either um, benefiting us, or maybe it's actually holding us back because there's some
Mhm.
belief systems there that are no longer of service. Um, in the more modern systems of yoga, there's generally speaking, there's four basic systems. The one that I've studied the most and focused on the most is what is called Raja Yoga. Raja is the youngest of the yogic practices. There's other ones, but I don't want to get too lost on syntax here. The actual yoga practices encompasses the mental, the physiological, the breath, and then more of that meditative piece. And just briefly, if we were just to focus on the physical practice, that would be just 1/8 of the entire practice. So,
Mm.
what we see here in the West is really just 1/8 of its totality. The bigger piece of the practice focuses on things like practicing non harming, practicing truthfulness, practicing non stealing, practicing conservation of energy, practicing non attachment and letting go. It also encourages people to practice contentment. It encourages people to practice learning how to cleanse and clean the body, both physiologically as well as mentally. It teaches us how to have self discipline. It teaches us self study. And one of the ultimate pieces is it teaches us how to surrender and let go. Then there's the other portions of it, which would be learning to connect to your breath, because that's what's taking place in the present moment. And then there's also the, you know, learning to detach from our senses, because our senses can sometimes lie to us, or, may convolute the actual experience taking place. And then there's actual meditation, contemplation, concentration, things like that. So yoga is actually a very loaded word. And when we break it down like that, it's like, oh, wow, I didn't really realize yoga was that much. I just thought it was stretching. It is
Right.
stretching. It's meant it's physiological stretching, but it's also mentally stretching.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's kind of like saying I studied science,
Hmm.
or something, right? Okay, well, did you study geology? Did you study biology or
Right.
chemistry or like physics? Like what was it that you were studying? Science is kind of a broad general topic.
Right.
Yoga is similar in that respect. It sounds like,
Mhm.
in that there's a lot of components that go into it. Yes, there's the physical stretching that most of us are familiar with, that you see those pictures on Instagram and that type of thing. But the meditation and other things that go along with it, the things that you mentioned. Um, and one thing that you did bring up, and I kind of want to circle back to,
Mhm.
is the concept of surrendering and letting go. Um, like letting go of uh, thoughts and beliefs. Is that kind of what you're talking about, or is there more to it than that? And kind of what does that mean? Because to me, the reason why I want to bring that back up is because I feel like there's a lot of things that people are dealing with that maybe if they were able to figure out a way to come to peace with them and let those things go, things might just start getting better for them, and so I kind of wanted to circle back to that one and see what your thoughts were on that.
Sure. Great question, too. When I refer that word letting go, one, it is, in spiritual communities, it's used a lot. And sometimes I feel like it can, if that's the right word for this, it can sometimes not convolute. It's just a very loaded word. It's a very nebulous, that's the word. It's a very nebulous phrase. And so letting go in the context I'm referring to has to do with letting go of shame, letting go of guilt, letting go of apathy, letting go of anger, letting go of fear, letting go of pride, letting go of resentment and frustration, letting go of that self critic, letting go of self judgment, letting go of a belief system that I'm not enough or I'm not worthy, um, letting go of emotions. A lot of military members that I know, we drank a lot. We suppressed emotions all the time. We would self medicate. And so it's about letting go of some of that stuff that's been suppressed.
Mhm.
It doesn't look tough or it doesn't look strong to, have an eye full of tears. And I recognize that. But at the same time, too, constantly compartmentalizing emotions can actually do more harm than good because there is a psychosomatic reaction that starts to take place. And then once we start to develop these habits that are harmful to the body, it begins this slow cascade of dis-ease that begins to set in. And I say dis-ease that way because uh, unhealthy habits are a form of dis-ease. We have this dis-ease towards life or towards a trigger, and so we lean on these coping mechanisms as habits in order to be able to temporarily deal with it. But the truth is, we haven't fully let it go yet.
Hmm. Yeah, letting go of things is tricky because, like you said, we get really good at compartmentalizing things,
Mhm.
and that's not a great skill to have,
Right.
for long-term things. Sometimes it's necessary in a moment. You may need to compartmentalize something, to get through that moment, because you need all your focus and attention on whatever the task at hand might be. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking combat-wise, your best friend, something happens to your best friend, well, you can't sit there sobbing and crying while the enemy is still attacking you. You have to kinda
Right.
compartmentalize that and put that away and be like, "Okay, I'll come back to you later
Right.
and go continue doing what you need to do, so you stay alive." That's just a survival thing, but there needs to be a time very shortly thereafter where you can go back and unpack that
Mm.
and figure out how to process that and, ultimately let go of that. If there's, guilt or shame or something
Mhm.
along those lines that you might be, hanging on to because of
Mhm.
that situation, um, you have to figure out a way to let go of that. And I know all of this is easier said than done.
Right.
And you know, in the course of a you know roughly hour long podcast episode, it's probably not something that we can just unpack and be like, oh yeah, if you just do this, it'll be fine. Everything will be great.
It's
That's
easy. No, it's
yeah, it's
not.
super easy. No, it's not, and I know it's not, so I'm not gonna ask the loaded question like, "Well, how do you do that?" Because it's g that answer may vary person to person, or it may be one of those things that takes time. That
Mhm.
might be the answer too, um, and I'm sure that is part of it, that it
Mhm.
will take time, because if it didn't take time, everyone would just do it, and, it'd be like, "Oh, cool. I just let go of it this afternoon. It was no big deal,
Right.
but we have to I think with anything, we have to practice maybe with smaller things and
Mhm.
work our way up to those bigger things, if that makes sense, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And that's why, it is easier to start with a physical practice because that's something that's tangible.
Yeah.
In just slowly but surely working through the discomfort in the physiological body. Because there is most likely also a lot of discomfort in the mental body, so to speak, as well. But I feel with good cueing and healthy instruction and patience being the number one thing, which isn't always taught in the military.
So
you know, um, but patience is the number one thing, because if we're not patient with ourselves, we're going to get hurt and we're going to get injured. The only other one of the other things I might add to that too is learning vulnerability, and that's something that else also takes a lot of time, because no one likes to show their weak spots. People are often afraid that they're going to be used against them, or it's
Yep.
going to be weaponized in some way because most likely it's happened in the past. So, learning to be vulnerable over time is one of the beautiful benefits I find of yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, being vulnerable is also one of those things they don't teach in the military.
Right.
That's a kind of a big no-no, I think, as far as military context is concerned.
Mhm.
Um, we we don't want people to be vulnerable, and so um, that might even contribute to the fact that people aren't willing to go even talk to a therapist about the issues that they may be dealing with because, well, I don't want to be vulnerable. That's just not
Mhm.
a thing I'm going to do. But there's other ways of processing and working through these things, and which is, honestly, part of this show, this I'm just taking a little segue here for the listeners. Part of this show, the whole reason behind this show is to help folks who are struggling with things, who may have tried a a dozen different things to help out with whatever issue they're having. Maybe they're struggling with alcohol or drugs, or they have mental health issues, or whatever the case may be. Um, they tried a bunch of different things, and those things don't seem to be working. Well, the whole point is keep trying something new.
Mhm.
If you haven't tried yoga yet, for example, go try it. Try to, and not just the the stretching, the physical movements and things like that, which are good, but incorporate the whole practice, and see how that helps your mental state in the long run, your physical state as well, but your mental state especially. And keep trying different things. Maybe yoga doesn't work for you for some reason, that maybe it doesn't. Well, okay, great. Try something else. And that's why, this is over 400 episodes now I've had of this show. We keep putting out different practices, different things that people can do. Sometimes we come back and repeat some things. We've talked about yoga before, but it maybe reaches that person to just trigger that thing in their head that says, you know what, yeah, I'm gonna give this a try now. Maybe you might need to hear, kind of like a commercial on television. You might need to hear it a couple times before you're like, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go buy a Coke now. um, but all right, going back to what you teach and what you practice. Um, so you talked about the physical side of yoga, the stretching and that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I know a lot of military folks, especially, like to do the more traditional kind of uh, lifting weight, grunting kind of workouts, that
Sure.
type of stuff, or going for a run, that type of thing. Um, are there benefits of incorporating them kind of side by side, or do you suggest kind of going one route or the other?
I think it always comes down to the why. And when I'm working one on one with clients, I like to really get down to the root of their why.
Hmm.
Why, if, for instance, I did a lot of bodybuilding once I got out of the military, and and my why was because I wanted a bigger body. I wanted to be stronger. I wanted my body to be admired, but there wasn't necessarily, it was a strong body, but it wasn't a flexible body. It was a body that could lift things in, linear type motions, but it was not a body that could be able to function in a full range of motion and have a power band and all of that. So my what I like to understand with people is, well, why are you doing the workouts, and are your workouts causing more harm than good? Are they preventing injury, or because of the way that you're working them, is it actually causing more overuse injury because it's a repetitive movement? um, a lot of folks will say to me, my body's too tight to do yoga, or my body's too tense to do yoga. And my retort always to that is like, that's like saying you're too dirty to take a bath. Okay. like if you know that you're tight, then common sense should dictate that maybe we should stretch. And if the word yoga kind of bugs you, or I know sometimes the word yoga brushes up against certain religious beliefs too, and there's a misunderstanding of that. So people look at yoga as like, oh, that's the devil's work or whatever. And I think it's important to make correction around, like, listen, you can have faith and you can do this too. You can have the best of both worlds if you'd like.
Right.
Um, and so we have to first get over the belief system of what yoga is. On the pure stretching side, you're teaching the body how to open back up again, because where you have a contraction in your body, you're going to have shunted blood flow and vascular. You're going to have lower lymphatic flow. Your limbic system's not going to work properly. Your nerves are going to be constrained. Depending on the type of weightlifting and also where you carry weight on your body, you're going to have compression, which is going to put more intensity on joints. Um, their digestive tract wise, if you're not working out properly, or if you may be taking a bunch of like just these supplements, which I used to take, by the way, to get big. Well, a lot of these things are not good for the gut biome. Outside of yoga, my specialty is actually in the gut biome, and I focus on helping understand the gut biome. But keeping this to yoga, it really is taking some of that pretense off what people's idea of yoga is, and help them understand that it's more of a mental health practice than anything. So that way you can function in your life without some of the same narratives. If your body's tight, and that's a narrative that you're saying to yourself, oh, my back, oh, my shoulder, oh, my arms. How many times are you saying that during the day? How many times are you thinking about that pain that's there? How many hours are you waiting in a doctor's office, or a commute to a doctor's office, or waiting in
Sure.
line at a pharmacy in order to get your meds? There are other ways around it. And uh, I know that when we choose to lean into it, that the answers are there.
Yeah, and I think the last thing you said there is kind of a key point, that you have to kind of make that choice,
Hmm.
to lean into that. And going back to another thing you said about the kind of religious or spiritual aspect of it, I don't, maybe I'm not a biblical scholar, but I don't know anywhere in the Bible that it says don't do yoga, that type of thing.
Right.
So it's generally, like you said, it's a lot of, especially the physical aspect. If you're stretching, you're stretching. Call it whatever you want. I don't really care. Um, it you're stretching that part of your body that's tense. Like you
Hmm.
said, that just makes sense. Why wouldn't you do that? But before or after you go on a run, you you stretch your legs,
Right.
because, well, you're gonna need them to be flexible and moving and all that. Otherwise, that run is gonna be miserable, as if your
Hmm.
legs start cramping up or whatever, like, that's awful. So why wouldn't you, uh, go and do something like that? But, there's other parts of your body. I actually had a doctor's appointment not too long ago,
Hmm.
and uh, I had, some problems with my neck, and the doctor was like kind of feeling like around my shoulders, and they said, "I can't believe how tense your shoulders are."
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't know, it didn't even occur to me that they were tense. Like, it just felt like they were normal. But I'm walking around with tense shoulders all the time
Hmm.
because, like, I just didn't even realize it.
Hmm.
But if I can start opening that up and stretching it and everything, it will, I mean, it'll probably help my neck too, it'll probably help other things, and so it's like the silly song that you'd sing when you're a kid, like the head bone's connected to the, neck bone, it's
Neck
connected to
bone.
the shoulder, everything's connected, and
Yeah.
if we're just ignoring parts of it, well, that one piece is gonna maybe affect something else. So,
Mhm.
we have to pay attention to all of those things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all interconnected. The body is a self-encapsulated system. The only thing external is the breath. and the foods that we input, and but overall the body's encapsulated, everything affects everything, and if we're not aware of that, it's a good time to start becoming more aware of that.
Sure, sure. Um, I briefly mentioned, sound baths in the
Mhm.
beginning, the intro here. Um, uh, Tell me a little bit about those, and, like, tell the audience a little bit about, kinda what that's all about, and, how it works, what kind of benefits it has to offer, that type of thing.
Sure. Sound baths, they have a very ritualistic aspect to them. Ritualistic in the context of um, the one language that all human beings share is music and sound. You've probably just been in your car, and all of a sudden a song comes on and it just changes your mood just like that. Or there's just a beat going on in an office you're in, and all of a sudden your foot just starts tapping and you don't know why. It's just all of a sudden there's a syncing of that, and the body just naturally begins to sync up to it. There's been studies on nature and waterfalls, and how the power of that white noise helps to reset the body. Basically, what sound bath is you're in a room, you're lying on your back, your eyes are closed, you're brought into a meditative space through long, slow, deep breathing, and then you have a whole orchestra of sound. And it's not sound like pop radio sound. It is meditative. Generally speaking, it can be very calming sounds and soothing sounds, and sounds with specific pitches and frequencies, which through science we recognize has specific resonance to it. Um, there is a there's a physics experiment using these shaker boards, and what they'll do is they'll put sand on these. It's called cymatics. They'll take shaker boards and they'll run frequencies through it. And what's interesting is it'll take particles and it'll move these particles into beautiful designs. And there is a natural law and order that begins to take place once we start to have repeated ongoing tones. And so
Mm,
the goal of a sound bath is to have a repeated ongoing tone. I mean, 70% of your body is made out of water. It's going to have a percussion effect on cellular matter. It's going to affect the organelles. It's going to affect tissue matter. There are certain things that sound and vibration can get into that not even water can get into. And that's just because it's percussion. It's a waveform. It's just straight physics. Now, the sort of woo part about this is that you take someone who's generally used to sort of the Western model, and it's like, what is all this sound stuff? I'm not used to it. But you put them into a room, you have them close their eyes and start to breathe, and already just by breathing and oxygenating the body, you're starting to feel a little bit more relaxed. And then when you start to add soothing tones over it and create a safe environment, it just continues to build on top of it. So, ultimately, a sound bath practice or a sound healing practice is using sounds as tools and resonant frequencies to help bring the body to a healthier state of entropy and balance.
that's makes sense, because as you were talking about, driving in the car and a song comes on and it, triggers some sort
Mhm.
of memory, or, some emotion, some reaction in you. There's this one song, anytime it comes on, it brings me back to, uh I'm sitting in uh my parents' house when I was a kid, playing video games with my brother, like, because we got a CD and
Mhm.
a video game. It was probably like Christmas time or something like that, and we put it in the machine, and we started playing this new video game, and that's what we were doing, sitting there
Nice.
listening to music and playing video games. And so anytime that song comes on, I it brings me right back to that
Mhm.
that time. Um, Similarly, people might have experienced things like scents, where
Mhm.
you smell something and it brings you back to a time. Anytime I smell like fresh peppers,
Mhm.
like bell peppers or whatever, it brings me back to my grandfather's garden that he had in his backyard. He grew peppers all the time. And so it's similar to that in my mind, is kind of like what what you described there. But there's other things too with these sounds that, like you said, I with the shaker boards, with the all the particles kind of arranging in different patterns and everything based on the sound frequency. I've seen them that when they do this, uh, it's so amazing to see these intricate patterns just forming
Mhm.
from the sound waves that are going through that. Now, that's not to say that you're getting these geometric patterns or whatever, like, in your body as you're listening to the music, but like you said, the sound waves do flow through you,
Mhm.
and there's there's gotta be some, uh, effect on you when they go through you, and I know personally, I've listened to some of these, some of this sounds, and you start to feel, it's, I don't know how to describe it. You just feel, sometimes you just feel more relaxed.
Mhm.
It's hard to really put your finger on it, but I think it's one of those things, like you said, you have to do these things over and over again in
Mhm.
order to start really seeing the benefits of it. It's not like a one
Mhm.
and done. Let me just go listen to this one track and I'll be good to go. You need to
Right.
kind of have it kind of repeatedly over time. Um, uh, you know, in your experience, is this something that um, is like a lifelong ongoing type thing, or is this something where people can do it intermittently, kind of on a as needed basis, like,
Yeah.
as going through, like, I'm not like, how does that kind of work?
Sure. I get there's a couple different areas in this I'll discuss. The one would be with frequency, no pun intended, but working with sound. I feel like it's one of those things where you don't need like a public sound bath all the time. You can just put
Mhm.
on some calming tunes inside of your house and let that
Yep.
fill the environment. Just being in that environment alone, and also with the intention, because it's also about living life with intention. If I want to create an intentional environment around me and peace and calmness is part of it, then I'm going to create a atmosphere that supports that. As far as in person, there is something beautiful about my wife and I at Bay Club. We teach a sound bath class every Wednesday night, and it's a packed class. I mean, it's mat to mat, and what we enjoy about it is just the community. We
Mm.
have everybody. We have a doctors and attorneys. We have nurses. We have mothers. We have fathers. We have social workers and therapists. We have a whole array of people. It's not meant for just one type of person. When we lead our lessons too, we always try to have a topic at hand. For instance, this week's topic is purging and letting go, and because we're going through that with our move right now. And there's something about working in doing this work in community that's also beneficial. In fact, you may have heard of the name Dr. Joseph Joe Dispenza. Maybe not. He is a medical doctor, but he has really learned to bridge the science, biologics, as into mental health and spirituality. And he did test after test on individuals that meditated with sounds and meditated with prayer and in a number of different ways. And his blood test demonstrated that the immune systems of individuals that practiced in community and meditated were significantly higher than those that didn't practice at all.
Mm.
And I find that fascinating. But again, the community aspect is important, I feel. But you can do it, on and off as much as you need to. Most people will usually, they start to get stressed out and they're like, yeah, you know what? I'll go to a sound bath. I think I'll just
Sure.
go relax and breathe for a little while.
Yeah, I think and that's a good point. That a lot of people will do that way, where hey, I'm starting to get stressed out. Oh yeah, let's go do that thing. It's almost like, uh, I'm, oh, I have a headache. Let me go take some, some ibuprofen or something, and
Right.
to for that headache, I'll go take that right now because of that.
Mhm.
Um, my thought though was, could it and what you're saying is yes to this, I believe. Could it also be one of those things that's just ongoing, kind of a almost a preventative maintenance kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I think it is one of those prevent. It's one of those things that you just add to your tool belt. It's there and it's available, and you can do
Sure.
local searches in your community for something like that if that's something that you know. But ultimately, too, I think it comes down to um, the person that's leading it as well, the message that's behind it, and feeling safe. For a lot of people, the idea of laying down on their back and closing their eyes is not safe.
Especially in a room with other people, there,
Yeah, yeah.
I can understand that. Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like it can be very awkward at first. I remember how my first one was. So
Mhm.
I was like, "What are all these weirdos doing?" And then now
Right.
I'm
And then
doing.
you realize you're one of the weirdos too, and then
Yeah,
it's
and
all
I'm
good.
like, "We're all weird."
You know, and it does make sense too, I think, that, there's gonna be some resistance
Mhm,
to this type of thing. It's different.
mhm.
It's not something that we do all the time. We don't go lay in a room full of strangers. Well, actually, I should take that back because
Tense.
most people who've been in the military has probably laid down in a room full of strangers.
Oh yeah,
Whether it's basic training or some other, you're out in the
yeah.
field or whatever. You've laid down next to strangers and closed your eyes. Eventually those people are not strangers, but you've laid down in a room full of people and closed your
Mhm,
eyes and uh, you went to sleep.
mhm.
You figured that out. You're able to do that. So if you think that's weird, or if you think the sound bath is weird, laying down next to other people and closing your eyes, well, you've done it before, so
Right.
it's not that weird, right?
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's not weird enough.
Maybe we can make it weird.
Yeah,
We can get real close, up close and personal, and make it weird. But
right, right,
I think that might be a bit of a stretch. But
right.
um, I guess my point is that, anything that you try is going to be weird at first. I remember the first time I went to like a traditional therapy session. That was weird. Uh,
Yeah.
I
Oh,
never talked about these feelings. Like what are feelings? Like those are
mhm.
the things that I don't talk about. That's what they are, and
Right.
that was weird to me too. A lot of things you're going to try are going to be weird the first time that you try them. They're gonna be
Mhm,
uncomfortable, they're gonna be awkward, they're gonna be, there's gonna be a lot of, um, you know, uncertainty maybe even with it, like,
mhm,
am I wasting my time? Is this thing even gonna work for me? That type of thing. But eventually you gotta get over that,
mhm,
that awkwardness and just say, "You know what? Screw it. I'm gonna go do it." And yeah, the first time's gonna be weird, but guess what? The next time's gonna be a little less weird, and
yeah,
the time after that, a little less than the time before, and eventually, you're gonna kinda just get comfortable with it,
yeah,
and, um, you'll be able to experience those benefits, but if you don't give it a try, and if you don't
mhm,
like, give it a good try,
correct.
like multiple sessions and trying it over and over again, you're never gonna get used to it, and yeah, you're probably right. It's gonna be a self-fulfilling prophecy where
Mhm,
it's not gonna work for you because you don't let it work.
right.
So yeah, definitely give it a try. Um, Now I know there are folks out there, we're just talking about how, there's some maybe resistance and hesitation to, uh, yoga and sound baths and all of these, types of things. Um do you have any advice for folks who might be new to all of this and might be hesitant to get out there and try it?
Sure. One, uh, it begins with leaning in, just softening, looking at what the resistance really is all about.
Mhm,
Um, there is a piece of it that always begs, for me, anyways, it begs the questioning is what's the conditioning? What is the conditioning that's getting in the way from allowing me to open up and be vulnerable? Or what is the conditioning that's in place that prevents me from wanting to perhaps seek help or really receive?
mhm,
And because of a lot of the work that I do and my wife does around enoughness of being enough and being worthy, questions like, do you feel like you're enough? Do you feel like you're worthy enough? Like, let's maybe unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
What's getting in the way? If there's a narrative or belief that, oh, that's a waste of time, then maybe let's explore that a little bit and see what that narrative's about. Because if you're telling me that you're having reoccurring chronic issues, then we need to make the time in order to understand this. We have to stop saying that I'm too busy or there's not enough time or lying on my back is a waste of time, when actually lying on your back could be that break that is necessary, because what you're really doing is just sitting on the couch and watching TV and drinking, or
Yeah.
shortcutting your life in some way, shape, or form. Not that that's the case for everyone, but I feel like that's the kind of dialogue that needs to take place.
Yeah.
um,
And
Go ahead.
oh, just to that point, I can see there's going to be some people. It's like, well, what if someone finds out I'm doing yoga? That type of, like it's a taboo thing almost to say,
Right.
like, oh, I'm doing it. Like, oh, they're not going to think I'm manly enough, or whatever. It's like, who freaking cares what they
Right.
think? Like, if it's going to help you, go do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge piece too, is the misunderstanding that's there and breaking through cultural conditioning around it.
Yeah.
Um, um, that's going to take time. I feel it takes. One is, there are certain areas of yoga that use what I would just refer to, and no knock against it, it's just what it is, but more like woo, flowery language. And I feel that the instruction has to come sometimes from an individual that can understand, that can relate, and is similar. For instance, my classes, generally speaking, lack a lot of woo. There's more science that are involved with them. I love reading research papers. So I like to bring in research papers in medical studies and help people understand from a peer reviewed space that it's not just David that's making these things up. There's science here that clearly
Mhm.
demonstrates that this is beneficial. And if you can help people make the link between that, or for instance, especially since the main audience is veterans, looking at, asking questions like, how has war really affected you? How has it made you more tense? How has it made you look over your shoulder? How has it prevented a break, um, in creating a connection between your husband or your wife or your children? If there is dysfunction showing up in some way in your life, then maybe we need to look at that and see how either that's showing up physiologically, or perhaps how that's showing up mentally in your relationship with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I feel that if we can get down to that, we can make some very strong headway. But again, it comes down to relatability. And if we can make yoga something more relatable rather than this sort of woo culture that is sometimes appropriated to, kind of given to it, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. All that, the woo stuff that you're talking about, if you kind of put that aside and think of it from strictly a kind of a fact base, take
Hmm.
all that, the flowery stuff out, and all that. Like you're saying, you're kind of more science based, and you look at things and try to apply the logic and reasoning and all that you were just kind of discussing. When you do it that way, kind of doesn't seem so woo and flowery anymore. It's kind of like, oh well, this makes sense now. You can wrap your head around that type of thing. So maybe
Hmm.
that's what it is. Maybe it's just really getting folks to understand the science behind some of this,
Hmm.
the factual type things, and not make the again, not knocking folks who do this, but not making the Instagram kind of famous type things
Right.
be the center of attention, because that isn't the whole picture. There's a lot to it that doesn't even show up when you go to look at that kind of stuff on Instagram. And so when you get uh, when you get the details and the science and the full picture too, because like you said, yoga is more than just stretching.
Hmm.
There's a lot more to it. And when you um, kind of bring in all of those extra, those not extra, but all of those pieces that people don't typically think about, they
Mhm,
start to fit together in a way that can be really beneficial in people's lives. And I really do think that more people should check it out, at least give it a try.
mhm,
Maybe it's not for you. Okay, cool, check the box, you tried it, move on.
mm,
But give it a try at least.
mhm,
Especially if you're struggling with physical, issues, mental health issues, those types of things could really be beneficial to using yoga. Before we wrap up, um, uh, can you tell folks a little bit more about where they can go to find out more about you and the type of the work that you do and that type of stuff?
Sure. Of course, there's my Facebook page, social media, under David Romero, and there's my Instagram page, which is the Yogi Yogidr. That's my initials, it's David Romero. So it looks like the Yogi Doctor, but it's not. Um, there's David Romero Yoga online on YouTube, where there's literally hundreds of videos. Filmed a lot of them during the pandemic, but you can check that out online there. And then I do work with a wonderful nonprofit organization called the Coming Home Project, and it's a lot of special forces guys, pilots, and individuals that have really seen combat action. And we really try to provide emergency grant money for individuals that are working more on alternative therapies and practices. So just know that that's out there too for individuals that are struggling. And
Mhm.
of course, you can find me at Bay Club, where I still teach. And my wife and I are developing a website. Luminosity is the name of our company, and we're building all of that whole out too to for coaching of individuals and helping folks work through some of the stress and trauma that comes with life.
Excellent. And I'll have links to all your social media and all the stuff that you just talked about there in the show notes for folks to check out, so that they can get in touch with you if they're looking for anything specific, or they can watch some of the videos that you put together. Obviously, like you said, during the pandemic, just doing these things in person
Mhm.
wasn't a possibility. A lot of places were closed down, and that certainly had an impact on folks on their mental health. But having videos like the ones that you did certainly can help people do stuff in the privacy of their home, in the safety security of their home, right? But
Right.
uh, going forward, people are maybe hesitant to go out to a place to do this type of stuff,
Mhm.
and if they can do it from home, well, all the better, and at least that gets the initial awkwardness out. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, so, well, at least you can figure it out and make a fool of yourself to, your dog or something,
Right.
and not a room full of people.
Right.
And that's maybe a little less stressful, and then once you kind of start to figure out some of it, you can maybe uh, take it out into public and show people what you've learned from all these videos. So I'll have links to all that in the show notes. Before we wrap up, though, I always do like to end the episodes with a little bit of humor. And whenever I have another veteran on the show, I like to do a segment that I call "Is It Service Connected?" Just real quick segment where we watch a video of people, kind of America's Funniest Home Videos style type thing, where people do something stupid or whatever, and we kind
Sure.
of laugh and joke about them the way only veterans can, and we laugh about it a little bit, and
Sure.
so I'm going to share my screen with you real quick here, so you can take a look at what we're looking at here. For the audio only listeners here, check it out on YouTube or X, Twitter, whatever. Um, so you can watch the full video here. I'll try to describe it as best I can. Right now, uh, I can kind of guess what's about to happen because there's a helicopter, looks like hovering
Uh,
over a bunch of tents in a
Yeah.
field. And you know what? I'm just gonna say I'm calling it right now. One of these tents is going flying. I don't know.
Something's going, maybe even a
Something
porta potty. Well, those look like,
oh my gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
something's going. There
Something
we
is going
go.
flying through the air, in addition to the helicopter that's already there. I don't think anything's happening with that helicopter. I think one of these tents is going flying. That's my bet. So let's see what
That's my
happens.
bet too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, in the first second or two, at least two tents took off in the
Oh
air,
my god,
and
I
there's a
would be
bunch of
so
people
pissed.
inside of a tent right now. Everything's blowing around. There's something on the ground there. Oh yeah, there's a tent in the trees. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I would say it didn't look like anyone got, like, seriously
Hurt,
injured, although I couldn't
thank
see where
God.
that tent came from, who got dragged along with it, but, that was, they probably should have had that tent staked down a little bit better than whatever that was, but, that helicopter is also really close to those
Yeah,
tents, so that's kind of like maybe an unfair thing to say too, because I don't know those tents are rated for that kind of wind condition, you know?
right. Yeah,
Um
I think that, someone's gonna be getting a letter of reprimand over that.
Somebody yeah, and I'm guessing it's maybe the pilot,
Yeah,
of
maybe it's
for
the pilot or
being that close.
talk about situational awareness.
Right, yeah, you're 50 feet off the ground, and there's a bunch of tents there. Likely, there's other people there. You probably shouldn't be landing there.
What
Um,
was that, a Black Hawk or was it Apache? It looked like a
looks like an Apache, doesn't look like a
Apache,
Black Hawk.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
looks like an Apache. So, um, yeah, they probably shouldn't be landing there, I guess
yeah.
regardless. Um there's definitely troops there, and there's definitely tents there.
Right.
Those blades are probably going to be hitting the top of the tent if they were to land there. So, yeah, find another place to land, dude. That's not it. um, Anyways, David, thank you again for taking
Thank
the time to come on, sharing, a little bit. I know it's a complex topic, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. But sharing what you can, in the short amount of time that we had here to hopefully encourage some folks to go uh, check out yoga, and the full practice, not just the highlights that you see on Instagram. Not that there's anything wrong with those pieces of it, but there's a lot more to it, and so check it out. See what it does for you. Hopefully, it's something that is helpful. And if you need help along the way, again, all of David's links will be in the show notes, so you can reach out to David, who can, if you can't personally help you because you maybe are not in that geographic location, he might be able to point you in the right direction to get you the help that you need to get you started on this journey. So, thank you again, David. I really do appreciate it.
thank you so much for your time, I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On podcast. If you want to support the show, please check out Scott's book, Surviving Sun, on Amazon. All of the sales from that book go directly back into this podcast and work to help veterans in need. You can also follow the Drive On podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts.